The royal court of the Virian Empire was known across the stars for its beauty, tradition, and strict rules. Everything from the shape of the throne to the order of seating followed ancient laws. No outsider had ever changed these customs, not even the leaders of great star alliances. But today, something different was about to happen. A human ship, the Falcon Crest, had arrived on a peaceful mission. It was led by Captain Mara. With her small team of officers and specialists, the royal family had agreed to meet them, and for the first time in many cycles, humans were allowed inside the Golden Hall of Stars. Princess Alani, the youngest member of the royal family, was known for her sharp mind and sharper tongue. She stood tall, her pale blue skin shining under the crystal dome. Round her sat nobles, scholars, and guards. Her people, the Virian, were tall and elegant, with faces that held little expression, but eyes that showed deep emotion. Captain Mara stepped forward with calm confidence. She wore the simple black uniform of Earth's exploration fleet. Her second in command, a calm scientist named Theo, stood beside her. He carried a data tablet and had a kind but focused look on his face. Alani raised a hand. The room fell silent. "Welcome, visitors from Earth," she said. Her voice echoed through the hall. "We honor your presence. Let our talks be wise and free from insult." Mara bowed slightly. "Thank you, Princess Alani. We come in peace and friendship." The first are past in formal discussion. They spoke of trade, science, and peaceful missions. Everything was going well until the topic turned to biology and reproduction. A scholar from the Virian side asked how humans managed family growth without overpopulation or cycles. Theo smiled and began to explain. "Well, humans do not follow a fixed breeding season. Our species can reproduce any time of the year. It allows for flexibility and survival in many climates." There was silence. Then came a sudden burst of laughter. It was not cruel, but it filled the large hall with noise. The nobles exchanged glances. Some whispered. Others looked confused. Princess Alani raised her eyebrow. "You are saying that humans can reproduce at any moment during the year?" she asked. "Yes," Theo said, a little surprised by the reaction. "That is how our biology works. There is no fixed season for fertility." Alani leaned forward, a strange smile on her lips. "You are lying," she said firmly. "No intelligent species can have such a pattern. That would cause disorder. It would go against natural balance. I cannot accept such a strange claim without proof." Theo blinked. Mara looked at him, trying not to laugh. "I assure you," Mara said, "it is not a lie. This is a basic fact of human biology. We are able to reproduce year-round. It has always been this way." Alani stood and raised her hand again. The room became quiet once more. "I did not say this to insult you," she said, "but you must understand. Among the Virian, and in many other worlds we know, living beings follow cycles. Spring for planting, autumn for harvest. Even our neighboring allies reproduce in seasons. It is nature's design." Theo nodded. "Yes, we understand that is true for many species, but humans evolved in a different way. Our survival depended on being able to create life in all seasons. Our history shows this. It is not a design flaw. It is part of what helped us grow across our world." The nobles seemed confused. Some still chuckled. Others looked thoughtful. A few even looked offended. Alani narrowed her eyes. "Words are easy," she said, "but proof is better. I demand more than just your word. Show me. Prove this to be true, or I will consider it a false claim made to impress." Captain Mara frowned. "Princess, this is a serious topic. Proof in this matter would mean going into personal and private parts of life. We can provide scientific records if you wish, medical data, historical facts, but no," Alani said. "That is not enough. You come to our court and speak of impossible things. If you cannot show us the truth, how can we trust anything else you say?" The room fell silent again. This time, it felt heavier. Theo looked at his screen. He had data, yes, but he knew it would not be enough. These people lived by proof that could be seen and touched. Mara stepped forward. If this is to be a test of truth, she said, then let us agree on the terms. We cannot and will not take part in anything that crosses lines of respect. But if you truly wish to understand, we will find a way to share our knowledge. A peaceful and respectful way. Alani gave a slow nod. I accept that condition. No, offense shall be forced, but I do expect something more than words. If you cannot give it, we will consider the matter closed, and your honor will be questioned. Mar held her ground. We accept the challenge. We will prepare a presentation that shows human biology and history clearly. We ask only for open minds. The princess turned and spoke to her advisors in a soft voice. Then she faced the humans once again. Very well, she said, into sun cycles. We will gather again in this court. You will have one chance to make your case. With that, she turned and walked away, her long robes flowing behind her. The nobles followed her, still whispering and shaking their heads as the humans left the hall. Theo sighed. I can't believe she thought we made it up, he said. Mara smiled. To them, we might seem as strange as they do to us. But if they want truth, we'll give them all of it. News traveled quickly inside the Veering Palace. By the next morning, every hall echoed with talk of the strange human claim. Servants whispered about it while polishing crystal floors. Scholars argued in soft tones near the library towers. Guards laughed quietly at their posts. Even the royal cooks stopped to share their thoughts over steaming pots. The phrase had already turned into a saying, year-round. They say, one noble muttered as he walked past the garden. Humans are brave, yes, but that story is too much, said another, sipping green nectar in the viewing room. Princess Alani sat in her private chamber, staring at the small recording crystal in her hand. It held the replay of the meeting. She watched the moment again and again when Theo, the human scientist, spoke about their ability to reproduce in any season. She found it strange not only because it was different, but because he said it with calm honesty. There had been no laughter in his eyes, no sign of boasting, just simple confidence. Still, she could not believe it. Varian biology was shaped by the seasons of their twin moons. Every creature followed patterns. Even the plants bloomed in rhythm. To suggest otherwise felt unnatural. Later that day, the court gathered again for regular matters. But the room was not as serious as usual. The nobles smiled too easily. A few giggled behind folded fans. It was clear what they were thinking. One tall noble stood and asked to speak. Your Highness, he said with a smirk. Should we invite the humans to write a book about their endless talents? A few quiet laughs followed. Alani raised her hand and gave him a sharp look. Respect is not a game, she said. We do not mock our guests. We test their words, not their ways. The noble bowed but still smiled. Despite her defense, even Alani felt the pressure. In a court that valued logic and proof, the idea that humans were always ready to create new life seemed more like a tale from a traveling actor than real science. She called for the royal scholar, an older Varian named Malin who had studied dozens of species across the stars. Tell me, Alani said, have you ever heard of such a trait before? Malin touched his chin. A few wild species show small signs of it, he said. But among intelligent life, it is unknown. The reason is simple. Control brings order. Season brings balance. Alani nodded. That was the answer she had expected elsewhere, in the guest quarters of the palace. The humans were busy preparing. Captain Mara sat at a long table, reading messages from Earth's embassy. Theo stood at the center of the room, surrounded by floating screens filled with charts, maps, and family photos. They don't believe us, Theo said. They really think we made it up. Mara looked up from her screen. It's not their fault, she replied. If we were in their place, we might feel the same. This is more than science to them. It's part of their identity. I know, Theo said. That's why I want to get this right. We'll need more than just data. We need stories. Real human stories. So they gathered them. They asked for permission to use simple videos from Earth. Parents holding newborns in icy lands. Children playing in warm deserts. Villages celebrating births during rainy seasons. Soldiers returning home and meeting sons or daughters for the first time. Nurses helping babies born during storms. Doctors assisting mothers in the middle of deep snow. Each image showed one truth. Human life did not wait for the weather to be right. Meanwhile, Princess Alani received news from her advisors. The humans had requested use of the palace display room, a place where messages from other planets were shown during peaceful talks. She allowed it, but sent guards to watch closely. 2 suns later, the court gathered once more. This time, the room was filled not just with nobles, but with young scholars, foreign visitors, and curious observers. Even the palace workers were allowed to watch from the side balconies. Alani sat in her seat, her face calm but her thoughts racing. She still did not believe the humans, but she was ready to listen. Captain Mara stepped forward. "We thank you for this chance," she began. "We come not to impress or shock. We come to share something simple, something that is part of who we are." Theo tapped the small crystal control in his hand. The room darkened. The walls came to life with color. The first image showed a child, wrapped in warm blankets beside a frozen lake. The next showed a mother holding her newborn as heavy rain fell on the roof above. Then came scenes of families in cities, deserts, forests, and mountains. All different, all alive. Theo spoke gently. "We come from a world with many climates, many dangers. Our ancestors could not afford to wait. If a child came in the cold, we protected it. If it came in heat, we found shelter. This ability to create life at all times gave us strength. It helped us spread. It taught us care without pause." The Viren watched in silence. A noble whispered, "That storm looks deadly." Another said, "How did they survive birth in such harsh places?" Alani kept her eyes on the screen. She had expected numbers, cold facts. Instead, the humans showed life. Not only science, but feeling. One short video played the sounds of a baby crying in a space station. A nurse smiled and waved at the camera. The message was simple. Life moves forward. When the lights came back on, the room was still quiet. Alani stood slowly. "This is not what I expected," she said. You showed us more than proof. You showed us the way you live." Theo nodded. "We only wanted you to see it through our eyes." Alani turned to the court. "Tomorrow, we will speak with our scholars. We must look deeper. But the humans have offered something real today. Let no one say they fear the truth." As the humans packed their equipment, Mara whispered to Theo, "That's not a full yes, but it's not a no either." Theo smiled. "It's a beginning." The morning sun filtered through the crystal roof of the Palace Science Dome. Inside the Royal Biolab, a group of Viren scholars and human scientists gathered around smooth white tables. They had agreed to work together in peace and without judgment. It was the next step in the search for truth. Princess Alani stood at the edge of the room, her hands behind her back. She watched as both teams connected machines, compared notes, and prepared samples. She had requested this meeting herself. Words and images had moved her, but she needed clear results to satisfy the court. Theo entered the lab carrying a metal case. Inside were carefully prepared samples of human DNA and medical records. He gave a polite nod to the Viren lead scientist, a tall woman named Sira who was known for her sharp thinking and calm voice. "We brought everything you requested," Theo said. "Medical scans, birth records, hormone data, and full studies from Earth research centers." Sira accepted the case and motioned to her team. They opened it and began to study each item with great care. On the other side of the room, Dr. Rima set up a human fertility scanner while explaining its use to curious Viren researchers. Alani walked slowly through the lab. She looked at the data screens and the flashing charts. Everything felt real now. This was no longer a debate. It was a search for understanding. Sira spoke first. "Your records show no fixed mating season. Your hormone patterns are active throughout the year. Birth records are consistent across all climates and months." She paused, then looked up at Alani. "The data supports their claim." The room became very quiet. Alani blinked. She had expected the test to take longer. She had not expected a clear result so quickly. "So it is true," she said softly. "Yes," Sira replied. "The humans are telling the truth. Their biology allows for reproduction at all times. A few veering scholars looked shocked. One younger assistant whispered something to a colleague. Another tapped his fingers nervously on the table. Alani turned toward Theo. "You do not seem surprised." Theo gave a small smile. "We've always known who we are. We just needed you to believe it too." But not everyone in the room was ready to accept the results. One veering researcher, a stern man named Korn, stood and cleared his throat. "This is unnatural," he said. "It may be true, but it goes against everything we understand about balance. Nature designed cycles for a reason. How can such a system survive without falling into chaos?" Theo did not look angry. He simply stepped forward and replied, "We have faced chaos, disease, war, famine, disaster. But in all of it, our strength came from life itself, from being able to move forward no matter what. Our ability to create new life in hard times gave us hope when nothing else could." Korn shook his head. "You call it strength. I call it disorder." Princess Alani stepped between them. "You both speak with passion, but passion must lead to wisdom." She looked around the room. "Let us not forget the purpose of this study. We asked for truth, and now we have it." Sarah added, "We may not live as they do, but we cannot deny what is proven. The humans follow a different pattern, but it works. Perhaps that is their way of balance." Alani nodded. "Prepare a report. I will present it to the court later that day." In her private chamber, Alani sat in silence. She held the report in her hands. It confirmed everything she had once denied. The humans were not wrong. They were simply different, and in their difference, they had found survival. Malin entered the room and saw her deep in thought. "You look troubled," he said. Alani placed the report on the table. "I believed our way was the only way, that nature followed one path. But now I see many paths can lead to strength." Malin sat down. "Truth does not always feel easy, but it clears the mind." That evening, a small celebration took place aboard the Falcon Crest. The human crew was happy, not because they had won an argument, but because they had been understood. They played soft music, shared food, and talked about Earth. Princess Alani was invited, and to everyone's surprise, she accepted. She arrived in a simple dress, without her royal crown or guards, just herself. As the crew showed her around, she asked about Earth customs, about how families decided to have children, about how people raised them during difficult times. One young officer named Nia showed Alani a photo of her two sons. "My second son was born during a flood," Nia said. "The power was out, the roads were blocked, but the neighbors helped. They lit candles. A nurse reached us in time. Everyone worked together. That night was the hardest, but also the most beautiful." Alani listened with great care. "You risked much," she said. Nia nodded. "That's what love is. That's what makes us human." Later, Alani stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars. Theo joined her quietly. "You do not need to say anything," he said. "We're just glad you came." Alani turned to him. "I once thought your ways were reckless, but now I see they are brave. There is something powerful in choosing to bring life into the unknown." Theo looked out at the stars. "We do not control everything, but we face it anyway." Alani nodded slowly. "I will speak for you in the court. You have shown us truth, and I believe truth should be honored." As the ship floated above the quiet planet, two different worlds had grown closer, not through war or force, but through respect, science, and shared stories. The humans had not only proven a biological fact, they had offered a lesson in what it meant to keep moving forward, even when the seasons turned against you. And for the first time in many years, Princess Alani felt that the universe was larger than she had believed, not colder, just wider, and full of people who lived differently, but with the same wish in their hearts. To keep going, to build, to care, to live. The morning sun filtered through the crystal roof of the Palace Science Dome. Inside the Royal Biolab, a group of veering scholars and human scientists gathered around smooth white tables. They had agreed to work together in peace and without judgment. It was the next step in the search for truth. Princess Alani stood at the edge of the room, her hands behind her back. She watched as both teams connected machines, compared notes, and prepared samples. She had requested this meeting herself. Words and images had moved her, but she needed clear results to satisfy the court. Theo entered the lab carrying a metal case. Inside were carefully prepared samples of human DNA and medical records. He gave a polite nod to the Virian lead scientist, a tall woman named Sira who was known for her sharp thinking and calm voice. "We brought everything you requested," Theo said. "Medical scans, birth records, hormone data, and full studies from Earth research centers." Sira accepted the case and motioned to her team. They opened it and began to study each item with great care. On the other side of the room, Dr. Rima set up a human fertility scanner while explaining its use to curious Virian researchers. Alani walked slowly through the lab. She looked at the data screens and the flashing charts. Everything felt real now. This was no longer a debate. It was a search for understanding. Sira spoke first. "Your records show no fixed mating season. Your hormone patterns are active throughout the year. Birth records are consistent across all climates and months." She paused, then looked up at Alani. "The data supports their claim." The room became very quiet. Alani blinked. She had expected the test to take longer. She had not expected a clear result so quickly. "So it is true," she said softly. "Yes," Sira replied. "The humans are telling the truth. Their biology allows for reproduction at all times." A few Virian scholars looked shocked. One younger assistant whispered something to a colleague. Another tapped his fingers nervously on the table. Alani turned toward Theo. "You do not seem surprised." Theo gave a small smile. "We've always known who we are. We just needed you to believe it too." But not everyone in the room was ready to accept the results. One Virian researcher, a stern man named Korn, stood and cleared his throat. "This is unnatural," he said. "It may be true, but it goes against everything we understand about balance. Nature designed cycles for a reason. How can such a system survive without falling into chaos?" Theo did not look angry. He simply stepped forward and replied, "We have faced chaos, disease, war, famine, disaster. But in all of it, our strength came from life itself, from being able to move forward no matter what. Our ability to create new life in hard times gave us hope when nothing else could." Korn shook his head. "You call it strength. I call it disorder." Princess Alani stepped between them. "You both speak with passion, but passion must lead to wisdom." She looked around the room. "Let us not forget the purpose of this study. We asked for truth, and now we have it." Sira added, "We may not live as they do, but we cannot deny what is proven. The humans follow a different pattern, but it works. Perhaps that is their way of balance." Alani nodded. "Prepare a report. I will present it to the court later that day." In her private chamber, Alani sat in silence. She held the report in her hands. It confirmed everything she had once denied. The humans were not wrong. They were simply different, and in their difference, they had found survival. Malin entered the room and saw her deep in thought. "You look troubled," he said. Alani placed the report on the table. "I believed our way was the only way, that nature followed one path. But now I see many paths can lead to strength." Malin sat down. "Truth does not always feel easy, but it clears the mind." That evening, a small celebration took place aboard the Falcon Crest. The human crew was happy, not because they had won an argument, but because they had been understood. They played soft music, shared food, and talked about Earth. Princess Alani was invited, and to everyone's surprise, she accepted. She arrived in a simple dress, without her royal crown or guards, just herself. As the crew showed her around, she asked about Earth customs, about how families decided to have children, about how people raised them during difficult times. One young officer named Nia showed Alani a photo of her two sons. "My second son was born during a flood," Nia said. "The power was out, the roads were blocked, but the neighbors helped. They lit candles. A nurse reached us in time. Everyone worked together. That night was the hardest. but also the most beautiful. Alani listened with great care. You risked much, she said. Nia nodded. That's what love is. That's what makes us human. Later, Alani stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars. Theo joined her quietly. You do not need to say anything, he said. We're just glad you came. Alani turned to him. I once thought your ways were reckless, but now I see they are brave. There is something powerful in choosing to bring life into the unknown. Theo looked out at the stars. We do not control everything, but we face it anyway. Alani nodded slowly. I will speak for you in the court. You have shown us truth, and I believe truth should be honored. As the ship floated above the quiet planet, two different worlds had grown closer. Not through war or force, but through respect, science, and shared stories. The humans had not only proven a biological fact, they had offered a lesson in what it meant to keep moving forward, even when the seasons turned against you. And for the first time in many years, Princess Alani felt that the universe was larger than she had believed, not colder, just wider, and full of people who lived differently, but with the same wish in their hearts. To keep going, to build, to care, to live. The palace halls buzzed with quiet excitement. Princess Alani's announcement had changed the mood. No longer were humans a curiosity or a joke. Now they were allies, partners in knowledge and life. But this new respect came with questions, challenges, and the delicate work of trust. Alani knew that proving a biological fact was one thing. Building bonds between two very different peoples was something else entirely. That morning, she invited Captain Mara and Theo to the palace gardens. The sun was warm, and colorful flowers bloomed in careful rows. Birds with shining feathers sang above. It was a place of peace, where many important talks had happened over centuries. Alani greeted the humans with a slight smile. You have shown us much, she said, but I want to understand more. Not just about your science, about your lives. Mara nodded. We are happy to share. Theo added, human life is more than biology. It is stories, traditions, and bonds that tie us together. Alani gestured to a quiet bench beneath a blooming tree. They sat. Tell me, she said, how do humans manage life when the seasons do not guide you? When there is no natural cycle to follow? Mara thought for a moment. We build our own cycles, she said. We mark time with celebrations, with memories, with hope, birthdays, anniversaries, festivals. Each one helps us remember that life is precious, that time moves forward. Theo smiled. And in every family, there are stories passed down, stories of struggle, of love, of courage. They help us understand who we are. Alani looked around the garden, imagining life on Earth. Your world must be full of different challenges. How do you find balance? Mara spoke softly. We learn from each other. We share burdens. We teach children to care for the world and for each other, even in hard times. People come together. Alani was silent. She remembered the harsh lessons of her own world. The seasons brought order, but also strict limits. Many creatures suffered when the moon shifted. She wondered if humans' freedom came with a cost. Is it easy to live without nature's guide? She asked. Theo's eyes grew serious. Sometimes no, he said. Sometimes it is hard. We face dangers we cannot control, but we have choice. That gives us strength. Alani nodded slowly. I see now that strength is not only in rules, but in courage. Later that day, the humans invited Alani to visit the community hall inside the palace grounds. It was a new space, created to celebrate peace and learning between species. Walls were painted with scenes of Earth's diverse landscapes. Shelves held books from many worlds. The hall was filled with music and voices. Humans and Virion shared food from both planets. Children played games. Scholars discussed ideas. It was a place alive with hope. Alani walked among the crowd, watching how people smiled and learned from each other. She saw a young human woman teaching Virion children songs in Earth languages. Nearby, a Virion man showed a human how to grow moonflowers, plants that bloomed only under the twin moons. She stopped to speak with a human mother named Sira, who was holding a sleeping child wrapped in soft fabric. "This child is my daughter," Sarah said. "She was born during a storm. The power went out, but we had prepared. Life continues no matter what." Alani smiled gently. "You honor life with care," she said. Sarah nodded. "It is what all parents do. No matter the planet." The evening brought a quiet moment. Alani found herself alone on a balcony overlooking the city lights below. Theo joined her, carrying a small earth book. "I wanted to share this with you," he said. "It is a collection of stories from Earth, tales of hope and bravery." Alani opened the book carefully. The pages showed drawings of stars, ships, and people reaching out. She read a short story about a child born during a thunderstorm who grew up to become a leader. "These stories carry your culture," she said. "They explain why you live as you do." Theo nodded. "Yes, they remind us where we come from and why we keep going." Alani looked out at the sky. "I want to share your stories with my people, so they see you not as strangers but as neighbors." Theo smiled warmly. "Thank you, Princess. That means more than you know." Over the next weeks, the palace began to change. New traditions were born. Earth songs were taught in schools. Varying artists painted murals inspired by human stories. The council discussed new ways to honor both planets' ways of life. Not everyone welcomed this change. Some nobles whispered of risk and loss, but Alani stood firm. She believed that understanding was the greatest gift they could give each other. One day, a messenger arrived with news from the human homeworld. A delegation of Earth leaders was preparing to visit the Varying. They wanted to see the palace and meet the princess. Alani prepared a speech. She would welcome them not only as a ruler, but as someone who had learned to see beyond her own world. The day of the visit came. The palace was decorated with flowers and lights. Humans and Varying waited together in the great hall. When the Earth leaders arrived, Alani stepped forward and spoke. "We live in a universe full of wonders. We are many and different, but we share one future. Today, we stand together to build a new path, one of respect, of friendship, and of hope." The crowd cheered softly. Later, as the visitors toured the palace, Alani watched from a distance. She saw human faces light with joy and curiosity. She saw Varying eyes fill with wonder. For the first time, she felt the true meaning of connection. That night, as stars shone above, Alani wrote in her journal, "The greatest strength is not biology or technology. It is the bond we create when we choose to understand, when we see each other as more than difference, when we walk together toward the future." The grand hall of the Varying Palace gleamed under the soft glow of the twin moons. High above, intricate glass panels reflected the stars. Today, the Great Council gathered for a rare session that would decide the future of relations between the Varying and the humans. Princess Alani sat at the center, her expression calm but firm. Around her were the most powerful leaders, advisors, and scholars. Some wore robes embroidered with silver threads. Others carried small devices that recorded every word. The hall buzzed with a mixture of curiosity, doubt, and hope. The council chamber had rarely seen a topic as controversial as this. The question was simple: should the Varying fully accept the humans as equals in society? Despite their unusual biology and customs, Alani took a deep breath and stood to speak. Her voice was steady. "We have learned much from the humans. Their ability to bring life into the world at any time is no longer a myth. It is fact. We have seen proof. We have shared stories. We have begun to build trust." A murmur rose from the crowd. Some nodded in agreement. Others frowned. "But strength is not enough," Alani continued. "We must understand the risks. We must ensure that cooperation will not endanger our society." Lord Varel, a senior council member, rose to reply. His face was stern. "Your Highness, we respect your openness. Yet many still worry. How can a species without natural limits manage growth? How can we be sure they will not upset our balance? Biology is not just a fact. It is a guide for survival." Alani met his gaze. "True. But humans have other guides: laws, culture, and the will to survive. We have seen how they care for each other even in disaster. A young scholar, Erin, stepped forward. She held a data tablet. I have studied both species closely, she said. Humans show remarkable control through social systems. They regulate population by choice, not by biology. Their children are valued and planned for. Their science supports safe births and healthy families. She tapped the tablet. Charts and numbers appeared, showing human birth rates over many years, stable and consistent. This is not chaos, Erin said quietly. This is balance made by minds and hearts. The room fell silent again. Then, from the back, Corin, the skeptical researcher, spoke. Numbers alone cannot prove wisdom. We must test this. We must see if the humans can live within our shared world without harm. Princess Alani nodded. I agree. That is why I propose a new trial. She looked around. For one full cycle of our moons, a group of human families will live on varying lands. They will follow our rules and share their ways. Our scientists will monitor the impact. At the end, we will decide. The council members whispered among themselves. Some looked worried, others hopeful. Lord Varel raised a hand. This is a fair proposal, but we must be cautious. This trial will define the future. Alani smiled slightly, then let it begin. The next weeks were filled with preparation. The humans aboard the Falcon Crest selected volunteers for the trial. Families with children, doctors, teachers, and workers agreed to live in the varying city on the planet's surface. The city itself was a marvel of varying design. It floated above lush green fields, connected by transparent walkways and shimmering towers. Homes were built with soft lights and clean lines. The humans would live alongside varying neighbors, learning and teaching. Princess Alani visited the settlement on the day of arrival. She watched as human children play with varying youth. In shared gardens, she saw adults teaching languages and trades. She heard laughter, music, and the hum of new life for the humans. It was both exciting and challenging. The varying climate was different. The social rules were strict, but they welcomed the chance to show their way. Theo spoke to a small group. We are guests, but also friends. We bring our stories and our hope. Let us build a future together. As the moons cycled through their phases, scientists carefully recorded every detail. They measured air quality, food supplies, social interactions, and health. They tracked human births and care, varying reactions, and the environment's response. One night, a varying doctor named Sila visited a human mother in labor. The mother, Mira, was giving birth under unfamiliar stars but with calm strength. Sila watched the process with respect. This child will grow strong here, she said softly. Mira smiled through pain. Life always finds a way. At the council's halfway meeting, reports showed no problems. Human families adapted well. Births were healthy and safe. Social cooperation was high. Even skeptical members began to soften. Princess Alani stood before the council again. We see now that humans do not disrupt balance. They create balance through care, respect, and choice. Lord Varel nodded slowly. This trial has changed my mind. I see now that biology is only part of the story. The final days of the trial passed quickly. The humans and Varian shared festivals and meals. They exchanged gifts made from Earth and Varian materials. Bonds grew stronger. On the last evening, Princess Alani gathered both groups together. Today, we celebrate not just the end of a trial, but the beginning of a new chapter. We have learned that different lives can grow together. That strength comes in many forms. That hope and courage cross worlds. Cheers filled the air. Humans and Varian stood side by side, united in respect. Alani looked at Theo. You have proven your truth. Your people are welcome here. Theo smiled. Thank you, Princess. We honor your wisdom. As the stars shone above, the species began a new journey. One built on science and proof, yes, but more on trust, understanding, and the brave choice to believe in each other. The universe, once divided, felt a little smaller, and the future, once uncertain, shone with promise. The sun rose over the palace gardens, casting a golden light on the faces gathered for a rare celebration. It was a day unlike any other in the history of the Veering people and their new human allies. The successful trial had ended, and a formal ceremony was planned to mark a new era of friendship and cooperation. Princess Alani stood tall on the stage, dressed in simple robes embroidered with both Veering symbols and earth motifs. Around her, members of the council, human leaders, and citizens from both worlds filled the plaza. Music played softly as people from two very different worlds came together in hope and respect. Ilani's voice carried clearly over the crowd. Today, we stand not as separate peoples, but as partners. We have learned from each other. We have shared our stories, our lives, and our dreams together. We have found strength in difference. The crowd responded with warm applause. Children from both planets waved flags blue and green from Veering. And the stars and stripes of Earth. Captain Mars stepped forward next. Her eyes shone with pride. Humans have faced many challenges throughout history. But what makes us strong is not just our biology. It is our heart, our spirit, and our will to survive. We thank you, Princess Alani, and the Veering people for seeing us as we truly are. Alani smiled. This is only the beginning. Our worlds will grow closer with every day. After the ceremony, the celebration moved to the palace gardens where tables were set with foods from Earth and Veering. Laughter and music filled the air. People danced in colorful clothing, learning new steps and sharing old songs. Alani wandered through the crowd, speaking with many guests. She listened to stories of human families and their hopes for the future. She learned of Veering customs and traditions, finding beauty in their careful ways. Near a fountain, she found Theo talking quietly with Lord Varel, the once skeptical council member. They spoke with respect and curiosity, exchanging ideas about science and culture. Alani joined them. It is amazing to see how far we have come, she said softly. Varel nodded. Indeed, I was wrong to doubt. Humans teach us that strength can come from unexpected places. Theo smiled. And the Veering have shown us how to live in balance with nature. We can learn much from you. Alani looked up at the twin moons glowing in the sky. Our future is wide and bright. Days passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Human families chose to stay on the Veering planet, building homes and schools. Veering and humans worked side by side in research labs, farms, and trade centers. The exchange of knowledge grew stronger. One morning, Alani visited a human school where children from both species studied together. The classroom was filled with laughter and questions. Teachers showed holograms of stars and planets, and the children dreamed of adventures among them. Alani spoke with a young human girl named Lena who loved to draw pictures of spaceships. Do you want to explore the stars? Alani asked. Lena smiled brightly. Yes, I want to visit many worlds and meet many friends. Alani nodded. Keep that dream. It is important. As the moons passed, new projects began. Together, humans and Veering planned a joint expedition to explore nearby star systems. Scientists designed ships using the best technology from both planets. Pilots trained to fly with new skills, blending human courage with Veering precision. The project symbolized more than science. It was a promise of friendship reaching beyond one planet. Alani watched the preparations with hope. She remembered the days when doubt had filled the palace halls. Now, those doubts seemed distant, replaced by trust and shared purpose. One evening, she walked with Theo along a quiet path lined with glowing flowers. Do you think this friendship will last? She asked. Theo looked up at the stars. I do, because it is built on truth, respect, and choice, not on fear or doubt. Alani smiled. Then we have much to look forward to, but not always easy. Some old fears remained. Rumors spread among certain groups who worried that the changes were too fast. They feared losing their traditions or being overwhelmed by the humans' ways. Alani faced these concerns with honesty. In every change, there's fear, she said at a council meeting. But we must not let fear decide our future. We must guide it with wisdom and courage. She proposed open forums where people could ask questions, share concerns, and learn from each other. These meetings grew in size and respect. building bridges where walls had stood slowly. More voices joined in support of Unity. One day, a message arrived from Earth. A large ship carrying diplomats and scientists was preparing to visit the Viren world. They brought gifts, knowledge, and hopes for peace. The arrival was celebrated with great joy. The humans and Viren worked together to welcome their guests. Alani greeted the Earth leaders personally, showing them the palace and sharing stories of the journey so far. The visitors were amazed by the cooperation and friendship they saw. They promised to strengthen ties between the two worlds. Plans were made for exchange programs, shared research, and cultural festivals. Alani knew this was the fruit of many months of hard work and trust. On a quiet night, Alani stood alone on a balcony, looking up at the stars. She thought of the journey from doubt to understanding, from fear to hope. Theo appeared beside her quietly. "You have changed much, princess," he said kindly. Alani smiled. "And you have shown me that strength is more than power. It is choice. It is caring. It is hope." Theo nodded. "We all grow when we open our hearts." Alani reached out and took his hand briefly. "Thank you for teaching me." Theo's eyes shone. "The honor is mine." As dawn broke, the palace gardens filled with the soft hum of life. Children played, birds sang, and new friendships blossomed. The universe was still vast and mysterious, but the species had chosen to walk forward together, to learn from each other, and to build a future where differences were celebrated, not feared. Princess Alani knew this was only the beginning, but it was the brightest beginning she had ever seen. Together, humans and Viren would reach for the stars. Together, they would live. The end.